We start the new year with an issue that is impacting many Indians who are working in the US or are likely to impact many more Indians who wish to go to America to further their career. Now, the Trump camp is divided over the H-1B visa. Republican Party supporters and Donald Trump's team disagree on H-1B immigration debate. A series of events have shone a spotlight on the US's H-1B visa program, which mostly benefits Indian workers. Now, the program allows US employees to hire skilled foreign professionals for specialized roles. There are about 85,000 H-1B visas issued each year, and sample this, 72% of them are issued to Indians. Now, what has happened is that 30% of the Republicans favor a decrease in legal immigration compared to only 14% of the Democrats. To weigh in on the debate, we have from Ohio, Durya Dhinojwala. He's an immigration law expert. We also will have Mana Diamond from New York and Fabiana Zangaira from New York as well. We will have Professor Zenia Behel, Indian. She's a part of Indian diaspora, and she is a tech expert as well. Now, let me start my debate with Durya. Durya, amid the ongoing H-1B visa controversy, a new survey has revealed that 6 out of 10 Americans believe that the US already has enough skilled workers to train and hire for white-collar jobs and doesn't need any more. Can you shed some light on that? Firstly, good evening rather.
So good evening to all of you, and a very happy new year to your viewers. Thank you for having me on the show. My name is Durya Dhinojwala. I'm an immigration attorney out of Cleveland, Ohio. And I do not believe that there will be changes to the H-1B visa program. And the reason for this is because H-1B visa program is mandated by Congress, and presidents are part of the executive branch, and presidents do not have the power to change immigration law. And H-1B visa program has been in existence. The 65,000 quota-based system is actually from the year 1990. And it has not changed. In fact, in 1990, the population in the US was only 250 million, while today in the year 2024, the population in the US is 350 million. And it is my opinion that, in fact, they need to increase the H-1B quota system to match the number of jobs that are out there that need the skilled workers.
Mm-hmm. Let me go over to Fabiana. Fabiana, Steve Bannon, the former White House chief strategist, he has upped the ante over the issue, saying H-1B will be scrapped when they come to power. What kind of message, is it going to the co-chiefs of DOJ?
So actually, hello everybody, and thank you for having me. Happy New Year. So the H-1B visa definitely is a path to import like very specialized and high-skilled individuals to the country. And actually, it helps to develop centers locally to hire U.S. workers and like a lot of like great and high-skilled professionals as well that otherwise would have to be outsourced to other countries. So according to many economists, the presence of immigrant workers in the U.S. creates new job opportunities for native-born workers and fill employment gaps, especially in many STEM occupations that expand job opportunities for all. And the main reason is because actually the native-born workers and the immigrant workers have a different skill set, meaning that they fill different types of jobs. So actually, the H-1B visa program is a great program that increases the economy and advance the American innovation in the U.S. So definitely, I think it's a huge opportunity and definitely benefits the U.S. economy and the U.S. labor market as well.
Right. Professor Zenia Behel, let me ask you about, what Elon Musk had first said. He'd said that he'll go to war over protecting the H-1B visa, and then he backpedaled. He said that the system is broken, he's asking for reforms. What kind of reforms is he asking for, given that a set of reforms has already been rung in by the Biden government on the 18th of last month?
So, that's a very interesting question. Firstly, Happy New Year, and thank you for having me on the show. So Elon Musk did say, right, on Twitter that he will go to war. And he has also stated that his companies, be it SpaceX, Tesla, have benefited from the H-1B program and have benefited from, the skilled workforce coming into the US, primarily from India, China, Mexico, and all these other countries, right? And even Vivek Ramaswamy has supported this program itself. And while Trump said H-1B, helps companies, he's made use of it. He said in 2020 that the program is broken, it needs an overhaul. And again, there has been debate about overhauling the program. And a lot of it is surrounding, Durya can correct me on this, but a lot of it is surrounding, right, the random selection of people as opposed to selection based on merit, right? Because there is that gap of 65,000, which may not be enough at this point to support the US population, which may not be enough to support the economy, given declining birth rates, given, of course, talent needed, especially in the AI sector, in the tech sector, which is where I also, as a hiring manager, hire a lot of talent, who require sponsorship, given that many of them are immigrants, right? Even though it's a non-immigrant employer-sponsored visa. So the debate continues, but there hasn't been a ton of reform, right? There hasn't been a lot of reform to this program. There hasn't been a lot of changes to this program. Trump did enforce a ban in issuing certain applications back in 2020, but there hasn't been that. So it'll be interesting to see, once he comes to power, the kind of reforms that he does put into place, if there is any overturn of what Biden's already done, or if there is progression of that policy altogether. But this program is extremely important for US companies. It's very beneficial for the economy, as my fellow panelists said, and this program needs to continue. A reform is definitely needed, given the random selection, right, and given the cap, excuse me, of 65,000 workers who can be issued this visa per year. But this program in no way can be scrapped or changed significantly, right, because it benefits US companies and it's much needed for the economy and for job opportunities.
Durya, certain changes have been brought in of late by the Biden administration. Could you tell us how different are the norms right now from what it was before?
So I did review. It is by the Department of Homeland Security. DHS has the ability to draft regulations to implement the H-1B program. And the draft that I have seen, in fact, is more lenient toward the H-1B specialty occupation definition. And it is kind of what degree you have. So the way it works is we first file a labor condition application with the Department of Labor. So the program is highly regulated to begin with. There are checks and balances at every step to make sure that no one is abusing the H-1B visa program. And it's a myth that it takes away US jobs. In fact, I am in Ohio. I have Ohio employers who register for the H-1B lottery. So for example, if somebody needs a mechanical engineer, we have to register them. And as you saw last year, there were almost 400,000 applications, which is 4 lakh applications for H-1B registration process, and only 65,000 bachelor's degree and another 20,000 for advanced CAP, which is if you have a master's degree and a PhD from the United States. Those people, actually, those F1 students only get an additional 20,000. And in my opinion, that is not sufficient to cater the needs that exist in the United States. In fact, for the F1 advanced CAP, I would suggest that the 20,000 is not enough. There should be at least another 65,000 so that The people who spend the money, the students who come to the United States, spend their foreign dollars, get a degree in the United States, get a PhD in the United States, they should have the first kind of dip, which should be a lot more than the 20,000, to be able to then find a job so that we can keep those students here working in the United States versus them going to Canada, and Canada benefiting from the education that they have received in the United States. So if you ask me, there should be no quota-based system in H-1B. If you look at other non-immigrant visas, such as E-visas, L visas, O visas, TN visas, P visas, those are all work visas. They do not even have a quota-based system. So I wonder, why is the H-1B visa having such a backlash? Why is it having such a quota-based system when this was set all the way back in 1990 and we are in the year 2024, where we have the need to basically use those workers, and I believe they should be able to get the H-1B visas. And this is a Republican and Democratic, both seem to agree that if we have the need, right, if there are 4 lakh applicants and only 85,000 are getting selected, that means there is a need in the American economy for these H-1B visas.
Right.
We just don't have enough of it. Yeah.
Duraiv, before I go over to other panelists, let me ask you, the changes that have been brought in by the Biden administration, have they come into force, or will they come into force only after Mr. Trump takes over?
So they will actually, January 7th, I believe in the 3rd week of January, the DHS has come up with a new form, which is a new H-1B form. I've reviewed it. I do not see a drastic change. I actually file my H-1Bs online. I actually like the way it is going. I think we're going in the right direction. And I'm really hoping that President Trump and whoever is listening to this program will just keep this in mind, that yes, we do need these H-1B workers. They have actually some leniency in the specialty occupation definition, but there are checks and balances. So there's not much of a material change or a drastic change. It's actually very minor changes to kind of move it in the correct way.
Fabiana, we have known the ones like Elon Musk, Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, all have been beneficiaries of this H-1B visa. They're a part of the meritocratic culture in the US. Now with the kind of changes that Mr. Musk is talking about, how many companies really will be able to hire these top talents, or will be interested to? Because what we understand is some of them, like Amazon, Google, Meta, are among the largest recruiters of these talents. Would they be interested to pay a premium on the visas and get these talents from India?
So that's a great question. So let's go one step back. So just as of today, the H-1B visa is primarily sponsored, and it's a great visa program primarily for big companies. And it's not just because small companies cannot afford to pay the fees, because the fees are quite high, but it's also because the chances to be selected in the lottery may be low. But the unemployment rates for low occupations that employ a large number of H-1B workers are quite low. This indicates that the demand for labor exceeds the supply. So if you think about it, as my colleague was saying, there are just 85,000 new H-1B visas available every year, which is just a small percentage of the total US population, which amounts to around 350 million. So there is a huge need for such, for high qualified and skilled foreign workers, because they bring value to this country. And there are not enough H-1B visa available for those workers. So definitely it would be I agree with my colleague that there is a need to increase those numbers, especially for people and foreign workers which have a master's degree or higher, because US companies needs them. As of today, the way the system is designed, it favors big companies. And in my opinion, it would be great, because the H-1B visa program is a huge opportunity for all the companies in the US also like startup companies, for example. It would be great to increase the chances also for those small businesses or those like startups to hire those qualified employees. Indeed, many of those immigrants that come here with under the H-1B visa program eventually become startup founders as well. So again, it would be great for like to expand the program, not just for big companies that can afford to actually pay the fees and support the lottery. That is again quite selective. But in my opinion, it would be great to expand the program and make it accessible also for like small businesses that sometimes cannot afford to pay high fees. And again, I want to point out that those fees were recently increased last year. So if you think about it, it may be difficult for the small companies, especially in the tech field. If I think about like many of the small startups that I represent, to support those fees, even though they need those qualified workers, right? So in my opinion, it would be great to expand the program and make it more accessible.
Professor Bell, let me ask you, a question about the Indian students. Now, would it be easy for them to extend their F1 student status to an H-1B visa? A, that, and B, what about the non-skilled laborers, like, and here I'm talking about the ones who are in the service industry, particularly manufacturing, hospitality, and construction?
Yeah. So one thing to point out is if you're talking about Indian students specifically, right, any changes to a program that's, for workers within the farming industry or workers in the manufacturing industry, specifically who work in factories, I mean, that is altogether separate, right? You don't have high-skilled workers seeking those specific jobs, right? And, conversion of a visa from like the extension that students get to be able to work to that H-1B has to happen by an employer. And as I said, that you have two attorneys on your show, they can correct me, but from what I understand is the specific organization needs to sponsor. The sponsorship window can take up to 6 months. So extension that students get post completing their master's degree or when they're close to completion of their master's degree usually helps them. It provides that waiting period for them to be able to continue to work for an organization while they get sponsorship. Excuse me, I'm really coughing here. But from what I see is most of my students come here for a master's program, right? I teach master's students, and they want to work here. They want to avail the opportunities. And America is a land of opportunities, right? That's why so many Indian students come here to work, especially in the tech sector. And the cap needs to increase. Currently, only 65,000 visas are issued, H-1B visas. That needs to increase, as my fellow panelists have said. So all I'm going to say is the H-1B visa does not take away American jobs. Foreign workers do not take away American jobs. In fact, they help the economy because, as my fellow panelists said, some of them eventually end up becoming startup founders, right? And that creates employment that helps the economy. So the H-1B visa program, though, definitely can use reform, right? They can extend that quota that they have. Instead of random selection, maybe opt for selection based on merit only. But that program is integral for economic success and for the US economy to continue to better itself.
Right. I have very little time for one last question, which I'm going to ask Duriya. Indian government does not want to have an unpleasant issue. They're monitoring the situation. But what can really India do at this point? I'm talking about the Indian government.
So I think India should look at other options. E-visas are treaty countries. What we should do is push toward a treaty so that India qualifies for other types of visas and is not so dependent on the H-1B visa. that will open up the door because e-visa has no quota-based system. That's mostly like people from Germany, Europe. Those are E1, E2. They're called treaty trader, treaty investor countries. And India is not on the list. Pakistan, I believe, is on the list of one of the e-visas. So India should push to see what other options we have so that we are not so dependent on just the H-1B visas. That's how Indians flood the market for the H-1B, is because unfortunately for Indians, we do not have the option of the e-visa. We have limited option of the L1A, but for that, it's an intra-company transfer, meaning you would have to have a company in India and the United States, and then that worker has to work for that Indian company for 12 months before they qualify to move to the US on the L1 visa. So you have to meet the eligibility requirements of each visa process. And with the H1B being so, debated, we need to look and see what other visa options at India we can kind of avail ourselves. And one more thing, I'm also against the merit-based system for the H1B. I do not even like the lottery-based system. I do not want to see reform going toward merit-based system because I think, again, we would be going in the wrong direction. Right now, random selection, I believe, if the way to address Xenia's issue is pick the kids who are already here in United States. If you have sent your children to study here, if reform needs to happen, let's give them the H-1B lottery first before we go to the world and hand out H-1B lotteries to other people outside. So that is where the nationalism comes in. Let's take care of the people who come to
the ones who are already there.
Exactly. Let's take care of them. Let's make sure they get the jobs first. And
Very
then we can look to the world and fill those spots,
Yeah, very interesting thoughts to end the debate on. Of course, we will keep following this news very closely as to where Mr. Trump's administration really leads this debate and what happens to the Indians who are there seeking H1B visa and the ones who want to go to US to get employed. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining me on the discussion.